Cops beat a black mom on the street. Minutes later, her Navy SEAL husband arrives in rage. She never expected her day to unravel in a quiet parking lot. Tasha Williams, a devoted mother of 3 and a compassionate nurse at Highland Hospital in Oakland, California, had always trusted in the justice system to protect citizens, not harm them. Yet, on a fateful afternoon, 2 officers zeroed in on her for a minor traffic oversight, unleashing a torrent of brutality that would change her life forever. In a matter of moments, the promise of safety she once felt crumbled beneath the sound of cruel laughter and swinging batons. Little did these officers know Tasha's last hope lay in a single phone call to her Navy SEAL husband. Tasha Williams woke up to the steady hum of her phone vibrating on the nightstand. She squinted at the faint morning light peeking through her bedroom curtains. Another day. Another early shift. She often joked that nurses like her practically lived at the hospital, but she loved her work at Highland Hospital in Oakland, California. Caring for people in their most vulnerable moments gave her life meaning. She rolled over to see her husband's side of the bed neatly tucked. He had already left for his daily run. Adam Williams, a decorated Navy SEAL, thrived on discipline. Despite his constant deployments and secretive missions, he always found time for the family. He'd be back soon, probably drenched in sweat and brandishing a proud grin. Tasha's alarm blared, snapping her out of her reverie. She tiptoed past her kids' rooms, quickly checking in. Her teenage son, Kevin, lay sprawled on the bed, mouth open, deep in sleep. Her middle child, Leah, was lost in a mountain of plush toys, and the youngest, Marcus, just 3 years old, was clinging to a well-worn teddy bear. Today was her day off, but she'd agreed to cover a friend's shift for a few hours. The plan was to work the morning run errands afterward, and then return home before dinner. Her mother would look after the kids until Adam got home from base. After hurriedly showering and dressing, she stepped outside into the crisp morning air. She glanced at the horizon, half hoping to see Adam bounding up the sidewalk. When he was out running, he was like a man, possessed, focused, and unstoppable. She smiled and walked to her car. This was just another ordinary day or so, she thought. Tasha's day at the hospital began smoothly. She attended to patients with her usual calm competence, joking with them to ease fears and offering the genuine warmth she was known for. When her shift ended around noon, she was content and energized, a rare occurrence for someone who'd just spent hours on her feet. The sun hovered bright and high as she headed for the grocery store. She planned to pick up a few items for dinner, maybe surprise the kids with their favorite dessert. As she drove, the talk radio hosts prattled on about local politics and a spate of recent police misconduct lawsuits. Tasha frowned at the topic, an unease brewing in her stomach. She had always believed that most officers were decent people, but she couldn't ignore the growing number of horror stories involving racial profiling and police brutality. Eventually, she found a spot near the entrance of the crowded parking lot and hopped out. She was in a bit of a rush, keen to be home by the time her kids' after-school activities ended. Slinging her purse over her shoulder, she made her way into the store to grab groceries. In the back of her mind, she worried briefly that she might have parked a bit crooked. The lot was hectic, with cars jostling for space, and she hadn't perfectly aligned her vehicle. A small sigh escaped her. She'd be in and out quickly, though nobody would mind. After navigating the produce aisle, Tasha tossed apples, bananas, and some greens into her basket. She even grabbed a bundle of daisies, imagining how cheerful they'd look in the kitchen vase. That was the kind of day she was having, simple, bright, ordinary. She added ice cream to the cart for the kids, then glanced at a new brand of herbal tea. As she compared labels, she sensed someone behind her. Initially, she thought it was another shopper trying to reach for the same product, but a quiet prickle of apprehension ran down her spine when she looked over her shoulder. Standing there, arms folded, was a uniformed police officer. His name tag read Bellows. His cold stare made her uneasy. "Ma'am," he said, voice low. "I need to speak with you," surprised. Tasha glanced around. Can I help you, officer?" she asked politely. He jerked his head, summoning her to follow him. Her heart beat faster. She had no idea what this was about, but she complied. Pushing her cart down the aisle behind him, they emerged into a less crowded part of the store near a wall of cereal boxes. She noticed another officer, standing there, arms crossed, scanning her from head to toe. His name tag said Crow. The store's fluorescent lights caught the edge of his baton, and Tasha found herself swallowing hard. "We have reason to believe you have an outstanding parking violation," Officer Bellows said, not bothering to lower his voice. "We saw the way you parked outside. I ran your plates." A parking violation? Tasha was confused. "Officer, I'm not aware of any outstanding tickets. I might have parked a bit crooked, but You have a series of tickets from last year." "Overdue," Officer Crow interrupted, pulling out a small notepad. "You're driving with an expired registration as well." Tasha's brows knitted. "That's not possible," she said. "I renewed my registration recently. There must be a mistake." Anxiety blossomed in her. She was sure she'd taken care of all her paperwork. She began searching through her wallet, trying to find the proof. "Can you give me a minute to show you?" she asked, trying to remain calm. Officer Bellows' face hardened. "We're not here to debate, ma'am." He took a step closer. "Your vehicle is illegally parked. You have multiple unpaid tickets, and your registration is expired. We can sort this out at the precinct if necessary." Tasha struggled to breathe the starkness of the confrontation, startling her officer. She said softly, "I promise I've paid everything. Could we please talk outside? I can show you my documents in the car." Perhaps it was the tension in the air, or the fact that Tasha dared to question them, but an angry flush crept into Bellows' face. He reached for Tasha's arm. "Outside." "Now you're telling me what to do. Fine, we'll do this outside." His grip was rough. Tasha stiffened as he yanked her away from the grocery cart. She stumbled the strap of her purse, tangling around her shoulder. People in the aisle paused and stared. A few phones appeared, covertly filming. Tasha's cheeks burned with humiliation and panic. "Why are you grabbing me?" she asked, voice quivering. "I said I'd cooperate. You don't need to pull me like this." Bellows ignored her, dragging her toward the store exit. He nodded to Crow. "Let's see what she's hiding." "What I'm hiding," Tasha repeated incredulously. "I have nothing to hide." But the officers paid no attention. They marched her outside into the afternoon sun, leaving her cart of groceries behind in a rolling drift. In the parking lot, Tasha tried to point to her car. "It's right there." "My registration papers." She was interrupted by Officer Crow, who shoved her against the hood of a nearby vehicle. "Hands behind your back," he barked. "Wait. Her protest was cut off as Crow forced her arms behind her wrists, contorted. Pain shot up her shoulders, tears springing to her eyes. "This is a misunderstanding," she cried. Bellows hovered near her face, breath reeking of stale coffee. "You people never learn," he sneered. "Always have an excuse ready." Her stomach twisted at the words. "You people." She thought she'd misheard, but the malice in his eyes confirmed she had not fear mingled with anger deep inside her. Yet she was trapped, pinned against the hot metal. "Officer, please," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. "I haven't done anything wrong. If you let me go to my car, I can show you the paperwork." Bellows gave a dismissive snort. "She's resisting," he said to Crow. That was all the justification they seemed to need. Without warning, Crow pressed Tasha harder against the hood, making her gasp for breath. Bellows then delivered a sharp jab with his baton to the back of her leg. Pain racked her body as she almost collapsed. Tasha felt tears of anger and humiliation streak down her cheeks. She struggled to breathe. "You're hurting me!" she cried out, voice muffled by the hood. A small crowd had begun gathering at a distance, some filming with their phones. A woman's voice rang out. "Leave her alone. She hasn't done anything," another man hollered. "That's excessive force." But the officers remained stone-faced, as though they were the only ones in the lot. Bellows yanked Tasha back upright and slammed her against the side of her own car. The momentum sent her reeling, her vision blurred with tears. "Stop resisting," Crow shouted again, even though she was pinned, barely able to move. Tasha's heart pounded. She couldn't believe this was happening to her. A law-abiding citizen, a mother, a nurse. She thought of her kids, of Adam. Panic flooded her mind, overshadowing the physical pain. Through ragged breaths, she croaked, "Let me call my husband." Bellows huffed. "Oh, your husband's going to come save you, is that it?" He raised his baton again, striking her in the side. Tasha choked out a cry. Then Crow whipped out a set of cuffs. "She's under arrest. Assault on a police officer, resisting arrest, the works." He muttered, eyes gleaming with a twisted kind of triumph. Tasha was sure the cameras were still rolling from bystanders. She prayed they captured every second of this brutal injustice. Her entire body shook, a mixture of terror and outrage. She knew she had to survive this. She had to stay conscious, had to stay calm enough to reach Adam, because if there was anyone who would make this right, it was him. When the officers finally let her stand upright, Tasha's face burned, and her limbs felt like jelly. She caught sight of a woman filming the ordeal on her phone. Their eyes met. The woman gave her an encouraging nod, silently, telling Tasha she wasn't alone, that her story was being documented. Officer Crow sneered, ready for the ride downtown. Tasha swallowed painfully. "Please, let me call my husband. I have that right." Bellows laughed, glancing at Crow. Sure, let her call her big, strong hero. In a twisted show of mock courtesy, they loosened her cuffed hands, just enough for her to fumble with her phone. The screen blurred through her tears, but she tapped Adam's number. He picked up on the second ring. Honey came, his calm, deep voice. It was always a comfort, solid, protective. Tasha fought for composure. "Adam, these officers. They're—" Her voice trembled, tears threatening to choke her. "They're arresting me. They attacked me." Adam's voice immediately sharpened. "Attacked you? Where are you?" "I'm at the grocery store parking lot off East 14th, she began. But Officer Crow snatched the phone away. "You'll see her at the station." Crow snapped into the phone, then hung up. He stuffed Tasha's phone into his pocket, ignoring her protests. "There," he said, smirking at Bellows. "Now he can meet us. Let's go." They bundled Tasha into the back of their cruiser, ignoring the outraged cries from onlookers. Pain radiated from every limb as she was shoved into the cramped back seat. From the corner of her eye, she saw the flash of a phone camera capturing her tear-streaked face. She silently prayed, "Let the truth come out." As the car pulled away, Tasha's mind raced. Adam would come. She knew he would. The man who had weathered countless battles overseas, the man who'd walked through fire would not rest until she was safe. She just hoped she'd still be in one piece by the time he arrived. They drove to a nearby police station, a small, drab building on a less-traveled street. It struck Tasha as odd that they hadn't taken her to a more central precinct. She soon understood why Bellows and Crow escorted her into a claustrophobic interrogation room, paint peeling from the walls. A flickering fluorescent bulb buzzed overhead. They removed her cuffs, only to cuff her to a metal table. Her wrists throbbed raw from the earlier scuffle. Officer Crow cracked his neck, looming over her. "Let's see who you really are," he growled, rifling through her purse, which they'd confiscated. Officer Bellows rubbed a meaty palm over his baton. "So you're a nurse, huh? You think that makes you special?" Tasha's voice shook. "I'm just a citizen, someone who respects the law. I'm telling you there's a mistake with the tickets and my registration." Crow slammed a hand on the table, making her jump. "You're not in a position to argue. You assaulted us outside that store. That's a serious crime. That's a lie." Tasha burst out, but fear constricted her throat. Bellows circled behind her. Leaning in close, she could smell the sweat and aggression rolling off him. "I see you have 3 children." "Tasha Williams," he said, flipping through her wallet. "Would be a shame if things got complicated for them too." Her blood went cold. "What do you mean?" she asked hoarsely. He shrugged. "Just that we have ways of ensuring people cooperate." Anger flared in Tasha, despite her terror. Cooperate with what? She twisted in her seat to look at him. "All I did was park my car, crooked, and resist arrest." Crow interrupted, "And physically assault a police officer. Those charges alone can land you in jail for a long time. We might even find some drugs in your car if we look hard enough." Tasha froze in disbelief. Were they threatening to plant evidence? This was beyond wrongdoing. This was evil. Her eyes flicked between them. "You can't do that." Officer Bellows let out a derisive laugh. "Can't we?" She felt trapped, every breath tight in her lungs. Her only hope was that Adam would track her down. She had no idea if they'd placed an official booking record or if they planned to do something worse. The thought of being disappeared in the system sent a wave of dizziness through her. "Let me call my lawyer," she demanded, trying to sound firm. "I have rights." "Not until we say so," Crow replied with a sneer. He gestured at Bellows. "Check her phone, see who she called, then we'll see how long it takes." For Prince Charming to show Bellows dug Tasha's phone from his pocket. "Password," he asked her. She clenched her jaw in silence. With an irritated scoff, Bellows stuffed the phone back. "We'll do it ourselves," he said, and walked out, presumably to find someone to crack it. Tasha sagged against the cold metal table. Her wrists chafed against the handcuffs. Inside, she replayed the beating in her mind, how quickly it all escalated from a routine check to full-blown violence. She recalled the hateful sneer on Bellows' face, the twisted satisfaction in Crow's eyes. Dear God, let Adam be on his way. She thought he'll know what to do. Adam Williams slammed his phone on the kitchen table so hard it bounced. The conversation had been cut off. That policeman's mocking tone still rang in his ear. "You'll see her at the station," he'd said. It took all of Adam's training to remain composed. He closed his eyes and inhaled deeply, forcing himself to focus. Emotions wouldn't solve this. Calm, methodical action would. He was a Navy SEAL. He lived for high-pressure situations, thrived under them. He had tracked terrorists across deserts and rescued hostages from hidden bunkers. Now the person he needed to save was his own wife. After quickly arranging for his neighbor to watch the kids, Adam got in his SUV and dialed a friend in the Oakland Police Department, Detective Maria Silva. They'd met a few years back when Adam volunteered for a local youth program. She picked up on the first ring, "Adam," she said, concern lacing her tone. "What's wrong?" Adam explained the situation. In brief, clipped sentences, Tasha had been accosted, beaten, and taken away. He didn't know which station. He needed help finding out. "That's horrifying," Detective Silva responded, her voice trembling with anger. "Let me see what I can dig up. No official booking record has come through the system for a Tasha Williams. I'll keep checking." Adam's jaw clenched. That meant Tasha wasn't at any main precinct. She might be stashed somewhere quieter. "Please hurry," he urged. "Time is crucial. I'll do my best," she promised. And hung up. Within minutes, Silver called back with a lead. She'd heard rumors about a smaller substation near the old industrial district, run by a couple of rogue officers known to handle things off the record. Their names: Crow and Bellows. Adam's grip on the steering wheel tightened. "That's them!" He roared onto the highway, heading straight for the location Silver provided. The trip felt endless, traffic too slow for his racing heart. With each red light, images of Tasha in pain flashed through his mind. He pounded the steering wheel, urging the light to change. "Hold on, baby, I'm coming." Back in the interrogation room, Tasha's vision blurred with pain and fatigue. She watched the door, praying for it to burst open and reveal Adam. Or anyone willing to help Officer Crow was the only one inside, with her now pacing like a caged predator. Occasionally he paused to leer at her, letting the silence and intimidation do its work. Minutes felt like hours. Finally the door swung open and Bellows returned, phone in hand. No luck cracking her code. He grunted, tossing it onto the metal table. "We'll just do it the old-fashioned way." He turned to Tasha. "Unlock your phone." Her defiance flared. No Crow chuckled. "You sure about that?" He leaned in, slapping his baton against the palm of his hand. Tasha's breath caught in her throat. Every inch of her body ached, but she lifted her chin. "You have no right to do this." Bellows shrugged. "Right. We'll see." He nodded at Crow, who swiftly uncuffed Tasha's wrists from the table, only to yank her upright, slamming her against the wall. Her knees wobbled, and a wave of nausea hit her. Crow pinned her, while Bellows reached for her phone again. "I'll give you one more chance," Bellows growled. "Open it, or things get ugly." Tasha hesitated, mind spinning. If she gave them the code, they might delete any evidence of the brutality or rummage through her personal data to find some way to frame her. But if she refused, they might escalate the violence. She swallowed. "I can't," she whispered, tears of frustration welling in her eyes. Bellows raised his baton. Tasha braced herself. Suddenly the door banged open, slamming against the wall. Adam Williams stood there, chest heaving, eyes burning with fury. Detective Silver was right behind him, her badge held high. Several uniformed officers followed, more than enough to ensure Crow and Bellows wouldn't dare escalate further. The sight of Adam sent relief flooding through Tasha, mingled with a fresh wave of tears. Crow and Bellows froze for a split second, then quickly tried to maintain their composure. Adam took one sweeping look at the bruises on Tasha's arms, the tears staining her cheeks, and the baton in Bellows' hand. A muscle twitched in his jaw. Detective Silver stepped forward, her voice firm. "This is over. Let her go." Bellows sputtered. "She assaulted us, resisted arrest and lies." Tasha cried. "They attacked me for no reason." Adam's stare was like steel. "Take your hands off my wife," he warned Crow, voice dangerously low. Crow grudgingly released Tasha, but not before giving her a final shove. Adam caught her, easing her into a chair. Tasha buried her face in his chest, sobbing with relief. He pressed a gentle kiss to her hair arms, enveloping her protectively. Silver glared at the two officers. "We're investigating multiple complaints against you," she said. "And from what I've already seen on social media, there's video footage of your assault in that parking lot. Turn in your badges and weapons." Crow started to protest, but Bellows grabbed his shoulder, trying to salvage the situation. "Now hold on. We were doing our jobs. She was parked illegally. She resisted. Silver scoffed. "You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it." Adam locked eyes with Bellows. The tension in the room crackled like a live wire. "I'm not just a husband. I'm a Navy SEAL," Adam said quietly. "You want to test me? Go right ahead." Bellows paled at the unwavering threat in Adam's voice. Crow's sneer flickered. One of the officers accompanying Silver stepped forward, a pair of cuffs in hand. "Drop the baton," he instructed. Bellows slowly placed his baton on the table eyes, darting around as if searching for a lifeline. But there was none. He and Crow were swiftly disarmed and cuffed. They both started shouting, protests and threats. "We'll be cleared. This is a misunderstanding," but no one paid attention. Adam gently stroked Tasha's hair, his voice calm but thick with anger. "I've got you," he whispered. "It's going to be okay." 2 hours later, Tasha found herself in a hospital room. Ironically enough, the doctors at her own Highland hospital insisted on checking her thoroughly. She had bruises on her ribs, arms and legs. Nothing broken, but the psychological trauma was potent. Adam stayed by her side, holding her hand through every exam, and gentle poke, Detective Silver had already started the paperwork for a full investigation. Multiple witnesses had come forward with their phone recordings flooding social media. The story was spreading like wildfire. Cops beat black mother over alleged parking violation. The footage showed Tasha's terror and the officer's brutality in stark detail. It also showed the bystanders' outrage. It was not an isolated incident. Apparently, Bellows and Crow had a pattern of abusing their authority. Tasha felt a swirl of relief and lingering fear. She leaned on Adam's broad shoulder, drawing strength from him, as she had so many times before. He pressed a kiss to her temple. "We'll make sure they pay," he said, a quiet promise etched in his voice. She nodded, tears threatening again. "I'm scared," she admitted. Adam tightened his hold. "I know. But I'm here. They can't hurt you anymore." Detective Silver entered the room quietly, a sympathetic look on her face. "Tasha, I'm so sorry for what you went through. Internal Affairs is launching a formal inquiry. Bellows and Crow have been arrested on assault charges, and it's likely more charges will follow." Tasha exhaled shakily. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for not looking the other way." Silver's expression was grave. "The department has to do better. I'll keep you posted. Right now, I suggest you focus on healing." She paused, then added, "Reporters will want your statement soon, but that can wait until you're ready." Tasha nodded. Adam's voice rumbled softly. "We appreciate your help, Detective." She gave them a gentle smile and excused herself. After she left, Tasha let her head rest against Adam's shoulder, tears of fatigue sliding down her cheeks. For the moment, she was safe, but a simmering anger glowed within her. She couldn't let this injustice pass without a fight. Not just for herself, but for every person who'd been beaten and silenced. Word spread fast. A local TV station picked up the cell phone footage, and soon it was shared nationally. Tasha's face, tear-streaked and bruised, became a symbol of yet another case of police brutality. Civil rights organizations started calling, offering support and resources. Activists showed up outside the station. To protest, the Oakland community rallied, chanting her name, among other victims of police misconduct. In the hospital, Tasha found her phone flooded with messages. Friends, colleagues, old acquaintances, and even strangers reached out with words of solidarity. It was overwhelming. She barely had the energy to process it all. But in her mind, she kept reliving the assault. The baton striking her body, the cruel words and the helplessness. She squeezed Adam's hand during these flashbacks, and he'd pull her close each time, reminding her she wasn't alone. One afternoon, a tall man in a crisp suit appeared at her hospital door, accompanied by Detective Silver. He introduced himself as John Hopkins, a lawyer representing a prominent civil rights firm based in San Francisco. "We've seen your case," he said gently. "My firm wants to help you pro bono. What happened to you is reprehensible, and we will fight for justice." Tasha glanced at Adam. He nodded his approval. Their finances weren't tight, but a high-profile legal battle could become astronomically expensive. "Having a reputable firm in her corner was a gift. I want those men held accountable," Tasha whispered, a voice shaking. Hopkins placed a reassuring hand on the bed rail. "They will be. We'll make sure of it." Days turned into weeks as Tasha recovered. The bruises on her body faded, but the emotional scars remained. Meanwhile, Adam had returned to his base duties, though he kept close tabs on Tasha's case. Every day he'd come home to updates from Detective Silver and Hopkins. He shared them with Tasha, sometimes sparing the more distressing details, but Tasha insisted she wanted to know everything. It turned out that Bellows and Crow were part of a larger network of corrupt officers. Records showed a pattern of falsified charges, especially against people of color. They had inflicted violence during routine stops, then charged victims with resisting arrest to cover their tracks. Most people never fought back in court, likely terrified of retaliation or lacking resources. Several more victims came forward, and the scandal deepened. The Oakland Police Department was forced into a full-blown overhaul, with the mayor stepping in to ensure accountability. The public demanded swift justice, and the district attorney's office responded by pressing multiple felony charges against Bellows and Crow, assault, false imprisonment, falsifying police reports, and more. However, as Tasha's case gained momentum, a surprising twist emerged. One of the officer's attorneys argued that Tasha had a violent family background, referencing Adam's Navy SEAL status, suggesting that Tasha was used to aggression. They cast him as a ticking time bomb, implying that the cops felt threatened by Tasha's potential ties to dangerous individuals. Tasha was appalled. "They're painting Adam like a criminal because he's in the military. He defends this country," or Hopkins shook his head, a frown etched on his brow. "It's a desperate strategy. They have nothing else, so they're trying to shift blame. Don't worry, this won't stand in court." Nevertheless, the insinuations caught media attention, fueling debates on some talk shows. Tasha struggled with anxiety, hearing people question Adam's character, but Adam remained stoic. "It's part of their game," he assured her. "They want you rattled. Don't let them succeed." During this period, Tasha found a fierce ally in the local community. Civic leaders, pastors, and grassroots organizations held rallies. They recognized Tasha's story as part of a broader crisis. Whenever she felt overwhelmed, Tasha reminded herself that she wasn't just fighting for her own justice, but for everyone who had been silenced by fear. Adam stepped up too, using his discipline and training to organize support. He reached out to fellow veterans who shared Tasha's story on their own social media platforms, flooding the public discourse with unwavering support for her. His commanding officer, though cautious about media involvement, privately offered words of encouragement. In a touching gesture, Tasha's colleagues at Highland Hospital arranged a fundraiser for victims of police brutality, naming it the Justice and Care Initiative. The event drew hundreds of donors, raising a significant amount for legal assistance funds. Tasha attended in person, standing on a small stage and speaking from the heart about her experience. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she said, "For years I believed, if I just did everything right, worked hard, obeyed the law, treated others with kindness, then I'd be safe, but that's not the world we live in. This fight is about demanding accountability and building a safer community for all of us." The applause thundered. Finally, the day of the preliminary hearing arrived. Tasha, Adam, and Hopkins walked into the courthouse, hearts pounding. The hallway buzzed with journalists and curious onlookers. Tasha wore a simple black dress, her bruises fully healed, but the memory of that day seared into her mind. Adam stood by her side, jaw-set posture, straight a silent pillar of support. Bellows and Crow appeared in suits, flanked by their legal team. Their expressions were defiant, though Tasha could see a hint of unease in their eyes. After all, the evidence against them was substantial, multiple witness statements, video footage, and a trail of other victims. The prosecution laid out the charges in a powerful opening statement describing the officer's history of misconduct. They played the cell phone video from the grocery store, the air in the courtroom thick with tension as everyone watched Tasha's brutal takedown. Some onlookers gasped. Tasha pressed her lips together, memories flooding back. Adam placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. When the defense took the floor, they tried to undermine Tasha's credibility. They questioned her memory, implying she was traumatized and confused. They dredged up minor details of her past, like a speeding ticket. She once forgot to pay on time and tried to paint her as irresponsible, but Hopkins systematically dismantled these arguments, highlighting the defendant's track record of vicious behavior. At one point, the defense attorney asked Tasha, "Isn't it true you overreacted because you're married to a man who specializes in violence?" Anger roiled inside Tasha. "My husband specializes in protecting this country," she answered firmly. "He doesn't abuse innocent people." "There's a difference." That line struck a chord. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. The defense attorney moved on, clearly unsettled by Tasha's unwavering poise. 2 weeks later, Tasha sat in the same courtroom, listening to the judge's verdict. The intense hush among the spectators was deafening. Judge Ramirez announced, "Based on the evidence and the testimonies provided, it is the ruling of this court to proceed with a full trial against Officers Bellows and Crow on charges of assault under color of authority, false imprisonment, and conspiracy to violate civil rights. Additionally, the court finds sufficient grounds for punitive damages in a subsequent civil case." A collective sigh of relief filled the room. Tasha's eyes fluttered shut as tears slipped down her cheeks. Adam's hand clasped hers. Detective Silver, seated behind them, gave a small nod of approval. Bellows and Crow turned ashen, their confident facade cracking. Their attorney's face tightened, realizing the noose was tightening. Although this was just the preliminary hearing, the judge's words made it clear the evidence was overwhelming. The wave of public outcry and the relentless coverage had cornered these officers into a tight legal bind. This time, they couldn't wiggle free with departmental hush-ups or intimidation tactics. The long arm of karma had found them. Outside the courthouse, a throng of reporters clamored for statements. Tasha, trembling, managed to speak briefly. "I'm grateful for the support and for the justice system working as it should. This isn't just about me. This is about ensuring no one else endures what I went through." Adam stepped in, protectively guiding her away before the questions became too overwhelming. Flashbulbs burst around them as they pushed through the crowd, determination set in their eyes. Life gradually moved forward. Tasha continued therapy sessions to process her trauma. Nightmares occasionally jolted her awake, but Adam was always there, arms wrapped around her, whispering that she was safe. The children sensed the tension, too. Kevin, her teenager, had seen snippets of the video online. He was furious at the injustice. Leah cried at the sight of Tasha's bruises, while little Marcus innocently asked if bad men would hurt Mommy again. Tasha and Adam reassured them every chance they got. Meanwhile, the city implemented new measures for police accountability. An independent review board was formed, and mandatory body cameras were enforced. Public officials vowed reform, though Tasha remained cautious, knowing real change would take time and consistent pressure. One day, Tasha received a phone call from a woman named Lorraine. She introduced herself as the wife of another victim of Bellows and Crow. "Your courage gave us the strength to come forward," Lorraine said, voice quavering. "Thank you." Tasha was moved to tears. She offered words of comfort, urging Lorraine to pursue justice. Each call like this reminded Tasha that her ordeal was not in vain, that by speaking out, she ignited hope in others. Months later, the main trial took place. Tasha testified in front of a packed courtroom, recounting the assault with calm clarity. The video footage was replayed, and the jury's faces bore a mix of shock and disgust at the brutality. Hopkins delivered a compelling argument, exposing the officer's pattern of abuse. Bellows and Crow's defense tried to shift blame and raise doubts, but their efforts seemed futile in the face of overwhelming evidence. After days of testimony, the jury returned a guilty verdict on multiple counts. The judge's sentence was strict prison time for both officers, plus a hefty fine. In the civil suit that followed, a substantial settlement was awarded to Tasha, though what mattered more to her was the official acknowledgement of their wrongdoing. When the gavel finally fell, Tasha felt a massive weight lift from her shoulders. She wasn't naive. No verdict could undo the trauma, and systemic issues still required deeper change. But at least in this case, justice prevailed. Hard karma had indeed struck back at the men who once thought they were untouchable. Over the next year, Tasha became a quiet advocate for police reform and racial justice. She spoke at community forums, church gatherings, and high school assemblies, sharing her story and urging young people to know their rights. Despite the pain, she found purpose in transforming her suffering into a catalyst for positive change. Adam remained her rock. Whenever she felt the ache of old memories, he'd gently remind her, "You won this battle." He returned to his Navy SEAL assignments, but each time he was deployed, Tasha felt a deeper sense of pride. This man had used his skills to protect not just the country, but her specifically, at a moment of dire need. Their love grew stronger. Adversity had tested them, but their bond only deepened. On Tasha's birthday, Adam surprised her with a small vow renewal ceremony in their backyard, attended by close friends and family. As they exchanged rings again, Tasha's heart brimmed with gratitude. She had been to the brink of despair, but she stood tall, hand in hand, with the man who would always come. When she called several years later, Tasha sat on a panel at a local community event. She was now part of a police oversight board, thanks to an appointment by the mayor. Wearing a crisp blazer and a confident smile, she listened as the panelists discussed policy changes, bridging the gap between law enforcement and residents. When it was her turn to speak, she locked eyes with the audience. "I'm here today, not just because I was a victim," she said. "I'm here because I believe in a future where trust exists between police and the community, where accountability is the standard, not the exception. What happened to me should never happen again. We must all work together, neighbors, officers, leaders, to ensure that safety and justice belong to everyone." Adam, seated in the front row, gave her a proud nod. The applause was overwhelming. Outside, the sky was the color of possibility, and Tasha felt a sense of peace settle within her, though her scars, physical and emotional, would never fully vanish. She had reclaimed her narrative. The mother who was once beaten down was now an agent of change, and no one could ever take that from her. It took one violent encounter to shatter Tasha's faith in a system she'd trusted, but also one determined phone call to awaken a force strong enough to protect her and hold those responsible to account, from that day in a grocery store parking lot to the final slam of the judge's gavel. Tasha's story is a reminder that courage can rise from the darkest moments. The mother and nurse who faced brutality simply for parking her car found justice through unwavering community support, unbreakable familial bonds, and the timely intervention of her Navy SEAL husband. If this story moved you, if it opened your eyes to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of standing up for what's right, then please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Together we can spread awareness, demand accountability, and champion a world where justice and dignity prevail for every individual. Thank you for watching.